Folks, I have trouble communicating sometimes. Folks, I have trouble communicating sometimes, and my memory is not what I wish it was. But apparently, I'm not the only one, because there are people who advocate, for example, prosecuting George Bush for murder, who scoff at the idea that Saddam Hussein ever had WMDs. They point to leaked memos where George Bush says, I don't think we'll ever find WMDs in Iran. He says that privately. And the Manning memo. So we're going to have to provoke Saddam into war by, like sending a drone over Iraq and see if he will have one of his soldiers stand up on the roof of a building and like shoot his AK-47 at it, and brrr. If they do that, we can say, well, you've gone too far, you've attacked us and now we're going to attack you in self-defense. It's a rather sophisticated audience that comes up with notions like this. There is no doubt that Iran is pursuing nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons and seeking to obtain long-range missiles from Korea and to develop them in Iran. Anthony Cordesman wrote those words in his book, published in 1991, entitled Weapons of Mass Destruction in the Middle East. So you would have to say, if you're a lefty, you're the same lefty who makes fun of me, you would have to make fun of Anthony Cordesman. Okay, now that's going to be a little bit harder to do. And that sentence is quoted in a New York Times article published in 1991. The exact date is October 31st, 1991. The title of the article is Report Says Iran Seeks Atomic Arms. Iranian nuclear experts began training in China in 1985, and in that year China provided Iran with a research reactor and a calutron, which became operational in 1987. A cooperative agreement initiated with North Korea on nuclear weapons development included assistance with uranium mining and exploration, and the 1987 cooperation agreement with Argentina stipulated that Argentina would sell Iran 20% enriched uranium for use in the small reactor at the Tehran Nuclear Research Center. In 1987, the Iran regime also formed a nuclear cooperation agreement with the Soviet Union, which raised even more concern in the United States about the Soviet Union's inroads into Iran during the Cold War. A declassified top-secret memo from June 1985 from National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane to Secretary of State George Shultz and Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger outlines the Iranian regime's wartime crises and the White House's increasing concern that the crises made Iran more vulnerable to Soviet influence. Quote, the most immediate U.S. interests regarding Iran include, McFarlane wrote, limiting the scope and opportunity for Soviet actions. Our primary short-term challenge must be to block Moscow's efforts to increase Soviet influence now and after the death of Khomeini. The failure of the Iranian regime to win the Iran-Iraq war with conventional weapons reinforced its determination to develop a nuclear arsenal in the 1980s. Even though Iran had fought a smaller nation, Iran is 4 times as large in land area and 3 times the population of Iraq, and had branded conquering Iraq as the first step in creating an Islamic government throughout the Middle East. None of this was enough. For all its tremendous resources and ideological fervor, the Iranian regime could not capture Iraq through conventional weapons, so the mullahs became even more convinced that the bomb was the way to go. After the ceasefire in 1988, Iranian President Hashemi Rafsanjani declared in a speech to the IRGC, quote, "We should fully equip ourselves both in the offensive and defensive use of chemical, bacteriological, and radiological weapons. From now on, you should make use of the opportunity and perform this task," unquote. That sentence is followed by a footnote showing that it refers to report says Iran seeks atomic weapons. New York Times, October 31st, 1991, page A7. A critical element of achieving this goal would be obtaining nuclear weaponry design and material from the world's foremost entrepreneur of weapons of mass destruction, A.Q. Khan, and his name is spelled K-H-A-N. Until his arrest in 2004, Abdul Qadir Khan operated a clandestine international nuclear weapons supply network that provided nuclear technology and materials to nuclear weapons programs in his home country of Pakistan, as well as in Iran, Libya, and North Korea. Those who accuse President Bush of lying to Congress and the American people regarding Saddam's weapons of mass destruction are fond of quoting from and referring to the national intelligence estimates. And one in particular, I think one that came out in the year 2002. These people who accuse the president of murder and who scoff at the notion of Saddam having weapons of mass destruction also scoff, rather amazingly, at any suspicion of Iran pursuing a nuclear weapon. These scoffers, now I know they're very sophisticated because they quote from and read and understand and talk among themselves about such things as the National Intelligence Estimate. They speak about weapons of mass destruction as though they are members of the arms control community. International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA inspections of Iran's nuclear program since 2003 have revealed significant undeclared activities with potential application for nuclear weapons, including uranium enrichment facilities and plutonium separation efforts. Ever on the brink of being declared in violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, Iran has allowed IAEA inspectors access only when pressed. Iran agreed to suspend its enrichment and reprocessing activities in exchange for promises of assistance from Germany, France, and the UK, the EU3. Negotiations with the EU3 are ongoing, although on August 1st, 2005, Iran told the IAEA of its plans to resume uranium conversion regardless of what the EU3 offer. Iran has had a nuclear program for close to 50 years, beginning with a research reactor purchased from the United States in 1959. The Shah's plan to build 23 nuclear power reactors by the 1990s was regarded as grandiose, but not necessarily viewed as a backdoor, quote-unquote, to a nuclear weapons program. Iran's current plans to construct 7 nuclear power plants, 1,000 megawatts each, by 2025 are still ambitious, particularly for a state with considerable oil and gas reserves. Iran argues, as it did in the 1970s, that nuclear power is necessary for rising domestic energy consumption, while oil and gas are needed to generate foreign currency. Few observers believe that such an ambitious program is necessary or economical.